الحمد لله.
Okay.
Alright. So you are streaming.
Okay, very good. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. And now we begin Monday morning programming right here on American Muslim 360. My name is William Kareem, and the name of this program is Living in the Upload Life. But first, let us begin like this.
The Arabian Nights didn't begin in Arabia. They began in the fire-lit halls of Sassanid Persia, where professional storytellers entertained silk-robed nobles with a collection called Hezar Afsan, 1,000 stories. This was the 6th century, and the Sassanid Empire represented the last flowering of pre-Islamic Persian civilization. Here, storytelling wasn't just entertainment, it was statecraft. Sassanid court culture had perfected narrative as a tool of power. Royal chroniclers transformed current events into legends that would outlive the kings themselves. Around braziers in winter palaces, master storytellers unfurled epic cycles that stretched for weeks, each night ending with carefully crafted suspense that guaranteed the audience's return. The technique was simple but revolutionary. Never finish a story when you can promise something better tomorrow. These Sassanid tales carried DNA from older civilizations. Indian merchants crossing the Hindu Kush brought collections like the Panchatantra, ancient beast fables that taught statecraft through animal allegory. A jackal's cunning could illustrate royal strategy without risking a storyteller's head. The Indians had mastered something crucial: stories within stories, nested like boxes, creating infinite loops of narrative that could theoretically continue forever. From Mesopotamia came even older currents. The Epic of Gilgamesh had established narrative templates 3 millennia before Muhammad was born. The hero's journey, the search for immortality, the tension between civilization and wildness. Egyptian scribes working in hieroglyphs had developed their own tradition of magical tales. Stories of pharaohs commanding jinn, of magicians raising the dead, of talking animals and enchanted objects. Then, Islamic expansion changed everything. Within a century of the Prophet's death, Arab armies swept from Spain to India, creating an empire larger than Rome. But unlike previous conquerors, the Arabs proved to be cultural absorbers rather than destroyers. In conquered Persia, they adopted the Sassanid narrative tradition. In India, they translated local fables. In Egypt and Mesopotamia, they preserved ancient wisdom rather than erasing it. The Abbasid Caliphate, established in 750 AD, made this cultural fusion systematic. The new capital at Baghdad became the largest city in the world within decades. A cosmopolitan metropolis where Persian fire worshippers debated Jewish rabbis, where Christian monks translated Greek philosophy for Muslim scholars, where Indian mathematicians taught Arabic numerals to European traders. Caliph Harun al-Rashid established the House of Wisdom, an institution that would prove crucial to our story. This was part library, part translation academy, part research institute. Teams of scholars worked to translate every significant work they could find from Persian, Sanskrit, Greek, Syriac, and Hebrew into Arabic. They weren't just preserving knowledge, they were creating a common language for the world's stories. The translation movement reveals the civilization's hunger for knowledge from any source. Court chronicles from Persia, Indian philosophical dialogues, Greek scientific treatises, Jewish mystical texts, all flowed into Arabic and from there into the broader Muslim world.
Yes. So that is from uh, 1000 Arabian Nights. You can find that on YouTube. That is the beginning of that. What we want to discuss today is the idea that the human being has always been a storyteller, always. Ever since the human being started communicating with language, that has always been the human being's uh, um, goal. The human being's goal has always been to be a storyteller and to fashion the story in the way that the dominant human being may have seen it. Storytellers that we're talking about here are storytellers who were uh, well, I would say that storytellers that came from, the beginning of Adam, when Adam and Eve, Adam's responsibility was to tell a story. And the story was to serve God and shun the devil. Those opposites. If you serve God, there was blessings. If you go ahead and follow your own path, there are you go ahead and you mix with the creation, you communicate with the creation, you have you involve yourself in the creation, then what's going to happen is that you're going to uh, come up with ideas and you're going to come up with conclusions. You're going to come up with stories. Either way. And so, either you will going to come up with stories that'll be good for your guidance, or you're going to come up with stories that will be fascinating and ridiculous. And you may go ahead and sell that story or tell that story to somebody else, and somebody else may basically believe it. So this is how we came up with uh, the whole idea of stories and tales and fairy tales and other ways that we can express the way that human beings come to understand things. There was something that was mentioned in this little piece, and it was called the Sassanid court or the Sassanid Empire. That's Sassinid. That was actually, it's not assassin, it's Sassin, Sassanid, Assassinate. This was a Persian empire that was before Prophet Muhammad. It was after Jesus, but it was before Prophet Muhammad, about 300 years. It was like the 6th century. All right, the 6th century. We were talking about the European calendar, 6 centuries AD. Okay, so the Sassanid Empire was a Persian empire, and they were the ones who, they had some idea about words, and they were able to create narratives, uh, words that it was very popular. That's what they did. They made stories. They made ideas because of the way that they understood the structure of words to that degree, and so they were able to uh, uh, make the stories like the Arabian Nights. It basically came from that. I forgot the name of the person, but the name of the person, Arabian Nights, that was before Islam that happened. What wound up happening is that they translated the Arabian Nights was translated into Arabic, and then in being it translated in Arabic, and then eventually it got translated into other languages, as you have heard, into English. But these were stories that were created during the 6th century and before, because the human being had come to understand the structure of words, and that seems to be um, pretty normal, right? That you would think that that would be the normal situation. We're talking about the children of Adam and Eve, okay, who had already been on the earth for, for centuries, okay, millenniums. for more than 1,000 years. So you would figure that they would, get a handle on words. And we're just talking about in the Persian Empire. We're not even talking about the other places like in China or Russia or the other parts of the world. But right now, we're just focusing on the Persian Empire and how the Persian Empire and the structuring of words actually had an influence on the Muslim culture and how those words that was in Persian culture were translated into Islamic culture, and then Islamic culture was able to spread it to many parts of the world, especially in Europe. And well, I will say in Spain, and because then when it got to Spain, what happened? The people from various parts of Europe would come down to Spain, and then when they would come down to Spain, they had an opportunity to mingle in cosmopolitan areas and uh, have these Muslims and other people tell stories. They would all tell stories. The Hebrew people would tell stories. Greek people would tell stories. And the Europeans would come down and they would hear this, and then they would take that back to various parts of Europe, like France and England, et cetera, et cetera. I'm bringing this up because I think that, just to bring it up to date so that we understand, because this is the point that I'm really trying to make. And that is that as far as African Americans are concerned here in America, it is important to understand that English is not your language. It is not your language. It is not our language. English is not our language. It is not even in our DNA to a great degree. I mean, if we are people that come from Africa, then there is a DNA as far as language and things like that has permeated, that comes down. And there's something that's a smooth transition. With Europeans, it's easy for them to speak English. It's easy because it's their language. It comes from their DNA. But when it comes to African Americans, I think that, the point that I would like to say is that, I don't think that English is our language. And that's why a lot of times it's very difficult for us to speak the language until, and I'm saying until, it comes to a point when you hear hip hop being done. Uh, if you listen to hip hop and if you listen to the structure of it, if you listen to the flow of it, we're talking about with hip hop, it has to have flow and it has to have rhythm and it has to have rhyme. So, in order to be a hip hop artist, that's what you have to do. And I would contend to you that it comes from the DNA of language. And so the way that hip hop is being an influence is because it has that flow, it has that rhyme, and it has that rhythm. And I believe that I'm the belief that this is the culture that's coming through, coming through from what we're talking about, Sassanid culture, the human culture from way back in the day up until today, that now you're starting to see this influence that's starting to happen. And I think that this is why hip hop is so popular. If you were supposed to just talk about the regular way that the political, if you were supposed to just talk about political speech and the way that political speech is done, uh, you will hear that the best speakers are those who are able to have rhythm and a narrative, and also they don't have rhyme, but there is this flow that they're able to have. And that's because these are people that have studied language. But as far as being storytellers, all right, because even people who are in the political field, they're telling stories. That's what they're doing. But, as far as, people who are not into the political field to that degree, people who are just, um, uh, working around in culture, people are just doing that, working around in culture, then there is this genetic thing that comes up that has been called hip hop, and that is influencing our system today. Sister Manera, do you have your hand raised?
Yes, I just wanted to remind you about your share screen. You said you were going to
Thank you.
stop it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so very much for that. Okay,
You're welcome.
thank you. Humbly that. So I mentioned this because there are some things that are happening in American culture, and some of the what would I say? Some of the workings that are happening in American culture that have an influence on African American culture and American culture, period, is this whole thing about DEI. So DEI is, what their diversity, equity, and inclusion. And even though, other people have taken advantage of it, we're talking about the LGBTQ and women, et cetera. What they have actually done is they are erasing the narratives of African American people in American culture. So why is that? And that is because the creativity, the artistic ability, the thinking patterns, uh, the tales they don't want the tales of the African American to be told, and so they are not really how would I say it? Because I wrote it down. I wrote down what is being done. Uh, right. They are not they are not trying to absorb African American culture in America. They want to destroy African American culture in America. That's what I'm saying. That there are other, uh, 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 as it was said in the previous speech that I was getting about uh, about the Arabian Nights. It said that the Muslims absorbed the cultures of the world, and they did, whereas other those that conquered, they wound up destroying. And I think that that's the situation that we have today, that these are people that understand the historicals, and they are looking to basically destroy the contributions of African Americans as opposed to absorbing it. I think it's difficult to do. However, there is a start that is happening. Many of it, the contributions are being erased from American culture, and 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 it may not have an immediate effect on us, but if we allow this to go on down the road, if this goes on down the road through history, through our children and grandchildren, that they won't be able to read about it, then what's going to happen is that it will wind up taking effect. And that has always been what European culture has done, unfortunately. There is no mention the about what was the contribution of the Moors or Muslim culture in the European age of enlightenment. There's no mention of that. They go right past that and go into some other ideas about what Europeans did during that time. And even though Europeans were the ones that came from England, France, and all those European countries, and came down to Spain to get the knowledge and the education. And when they got it, they went up and then they claimed it as their own. And that wasn't the only time. That wasn't just the only time that happened. It happened also when Alexander the Great he came from Rome and Greece, and he came down uh, 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 to Egypt. And when they came down to Egypt, uh, they winded up, which one was it? Aristotle, right? Aristotle, started translating, from the Egyptian uh, uh, information, and he translated it and then sent it back into Europe to Greece. And then, it was claimed that Aristotle wrote it, but Aristotle didn't actually write it. Aristotle basically, he took it and he, translated it, and then he claimed it, and it wasn't, and I'll tell you this here, it wasn't Aristotle that did the claiming. It was people who came after Aristotle. Aristotle knew where he got the information from, but when he sent it back over to Greece, when he sent it back over there, as the centuries went on, they started to claim it as their own. They didn't want to give the credit to Egypt. They gave the information to Aristotle, so they started to, well, Aristotle did it. There's nothing that's uh I would say there's nothing different about that, because human beings have always done that. They've always done that. Human beings have always done that. So we talked about what Aristotle did into Greece, and before Aristotle got there, there was somebody else who had visited Egypt, and that was Socrates. Socrates actually visited, but when he visited and he brought it back to Greece, they didn't accept Socrates. They said, because the information that Socrates was bringing back was the same information that Aristotle brought, decades later, but they didn't accept it for Socrates because they were just becoming familiar with it. They were just becoming familiar with the information that Socrates was bringing, and so Socrates, that's where you get the word sophisticate from, the sophist, the sophist. That's where you get that word from. And these Socrates had followers, and they were the sophists. And Socrates winded up killing himself, allowing himself to be burnt, to be bitten by snakes, because they didn't accept him. So when Alexander actually, when Alexander and the Greeks found out about all the wonderful things that was happening in Egypt, it was like, look, we're gonna get a couple of people, we're gonna go down there and we're gonna take over this stuff. I mean, these people got all that stuff. We don't have that. We're gonna go over there and we're going to be the ones that's going to take over there. And that's what they did. And they went over there, and they took, not only did they take the gold and all the rest of that was over there, Cleopatra and all the rest of that goes on. They wanted to be the pharaohs and the kings at that time of Egypt, because they had conquered it. It was all those things that happen that human beings do. So I just want you to know that this is something that human beings do. It's not. I just gave you some things that happened with the Greeks who came down to Egypt. I gave you something that happened with the Sassanids, that happened as far as storytelling and things like that, and knowledge. That's what human beings have always done. And we can even go back even further than that, and it should be understood that the whole idea of idol worship, and tells us, even the Quran tells us about how human beings, one God in particular, his name is Wadan, that the Quran mentions. And the Quran mentions Wadan, and tomorrow in the stories of the prophets, I've been talking about Wadan, that Wadan was a good man, and he was a good man that was in the society during, yeah, well, I'm not sure which one he was part of, but Wadan was a good man. And what idol worship did is, because Wadon was an organic creature, he had to die. So he winded up dying, but when he died, the people missed him. And because they missed him, uh, his wisdom and everything, what they did is they made a statue, because they would sit in a circle, and when Don would sit in a circle and he would share, etc., etc. But when he died, what they did is they made a statue, and they put the statue to represent Wadon. And when they put the statue in the circle to represent the Wadon, it was like they were still talking to Wadon, but it was a statue. So this is how they became, this whole idea came into idol worship. And then the next thing you know, the jinn shaitan told them, well, listen, why don't we make little statues so that we could put in our houses, so that, like, it'll be like Wadon. Yeah, Wadon is in the circle, but we can also have Wadon in the house. And so next thing you know, they started making these little statues that people could buy, of course, and then they could put it in their house. So people were the ones who made human beings who had special characteristics into idols. It wasn't the person who, you take a person like Mike Tyson. I'm just using him. Mike Tyson has a characteristic. The characteristic he has is that he's a very strong person, and all the rest of that there. And they are people who are fans of Mike Tyson. And when people are fans to that degree, what they do, fans being fan from the word fanatic, and what they do is, Mike Tyson doesn't carry himself around like, like he's all that. He doesn't, worship me. He doesn't do that. But people that admire the character mixer make him into an idol. They make him into an idol. And it's not only Michael Jordan, there's a whole lot of different people that do that. But the idea comes from human beings who actually make people into idols. So I'm going to get back to the point that I'm really trying to make, and that is the whole idea of the human being being able to tell stories. Okay. And in the stories, what the human being does is, like they'll make stories about Mike Tyson. They'll make stories of, people people will tell the story of Mike Tyson. Yeah, Mike Tyson was great and he did this and do that. They're storytellers. That's what human beings do. We tell stories, and we tell it of the way that we understand it and the way that we see it. Basically, that's it. So when you see young, so I'm jumping. So when you see young hip hop artists, when you hear them, they are actually telling stories about their life, and they're telling stories about the things that they go through to that degree. Um, this is a genetic idea of developing the whole idea as far as flow, being a storyteller, and I think that that's where things are going in the future, that you're going to, this is something that can't be stopped, that you're going to see that. And not only now do you see it from African Americans, but you see it from all people in all cultures now, that they are becoming storytellers, that they're developing rhythm, narrative, and they're developing flow, the ability to tell the story. And it comes from what the human being has evolved to do over periods of time. Uh, so when it comes to the Sassanid court, and I found this, I just found this to be interesting, that they were pretty educated as far as the way to tell a story. They were pretty, they understood how to tell a story. And because they understood how to tell a story, they actually had a structure to it. I don't think that the way that, the young people tell the stories today, I don't think that they really, I think about it on the basis of structure. They just think about it on the basis of, um, I have something that I want to say, and like I want to put it into, I want to go ahead and say it. So, and then when I get with some music, then I'll be able to just flow and flow. and flow to that degree. But when it came to professional storytelling in the Sassanid empire, it had a structure. It was structured, and they knew how to tell the story. Uh, it was a craft. If you remember the movie, the story, the message, and you remember the part about Boosuf Young, is that when Boosuf Young, there was a person who was on a platform and he saw Boosuf Young coming. And when he saw Boosuf Young coming, he told people, make way for Boosuf Young. And then he said this poem about Boosuf Young, and Boosuf Young gave him some money. And that is because storytelling during that time of Prophet Muhammad was still that was there. There wasn't a thing about insurance. That wasn't the main part of the culture. The main part of the culture was being poetics. It was being able um, um, to be a person who knew it, who gave a narrative and was able to flow and tell a story. And if you look at that film, when that person finished telling his story about Boosov Young threw him some money, and then he got the money and he got off the stage. But if you look, another person went and got on the stage right after he got off. What? Right off after he got off the box, someone else got up to get on the box. That meant that they was getting ready to tell a story. They were getting ready to say something. Um, so here it is. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tell you a story, a very simple story that I made up myself. Um, and just to show you that, the way that I might be talking right now, it's not because I'm just basically talking off the head right now. But I'm going to tell you a story and you're going to hear the flow because, it took a little time to actually get this together. And this is called The Keys and the Bees. And it says, I love a girl named Mary, the girl of my dreams. I love a girl named Debbie. That's the way it seems. I think so hard, I go in my backyard and play with my goldfish. When I get through, I call up Magoo and he says peekaboo. But when I call up Mary, who's so much like a fairy, she says if I had three keys, it would open three bees and we would have money that would be made out of honey. So when I went over to Mary's, she didn't look like a fairy. I had the keys, but where were the bees? They ran away. We had to chase them all day. Now, that is a structured rhyme I made up when I was in the fourth grade. Of course, as time has gone on, I've made more complicated rhymes and more complicated stories that I've made up over a period of time. But it's like this is not the first time that I'm not the first person in the world to make up a story. I'm just a person that took some spelling words that was given to me, and I was told to make a poem out of it, and I went and made a poem out of it. But there was something that was genetically involved, that was genetic in me, I believe, that helped me to do that because as time went on, I winded up being able to even develop further into being a storyteller to that degree. And then, by being that kind of storyteller, I noticed that the ability to be a storyteller is also in my children. I have sons that are actually artists, that are storytellers. One of my sons actually goes by the name of a storyteller. But I wonder, he doesn't realize that this ability to be a storyteller, this ability to utilize words to get attention to that degree, that it is something that is genetically that's genetically in you to that degree to and see when you make up a rhyme like I did with those. I was given spelling words and I was told to do it. I was able to do it. But right now, here it is. I'm talking to you and it doesn't go as smooth as I'd really like it to go. And that's because I'm just talking off the head. I'm just talking off the head. And I believe that is because it's not my language, and I'm just working to try to utilize the language as best as I can. But if I was supposed to sit down and structure it to a great degree, that I it would be that I would be even better in it. But I'm really of the impression that this is not because English is not my language, that it is something that has to be studied and structured to in order for me or in order for African American people to really take advantage of it to some degree. So that's one of the reasons why our children have to go to school and all the rest of that. But I wonder, do they teach our children to conquer the language? They don't. They don't teach our children to conquer the language. They don't do that. They don't teach our children how to structure. I mean, you tell them something like a noun, a verb, and all the rest of that. Well, what is a noun? What is a verb? What is an adjective? If I was supposed to ask some of the people that are listening right now to say, so what is a noun? You would probably give me, the idea that you made in that you got in school. But if I was actually ask you to go into the depth of what a noun really is, could you really do that? If I was supposed to ask you to go into the depth of what a verb really is and how two of them connected and an adjective and the way that an adjective is really not just an adjective describes a noun, not that. I'm talking about to really go into to understand what a narrative is and to understand how the noun, the verb, and the adjective actually works together with the pronoun and the conjunctions and to that degree. Whereas you would be able to professionally use it to that degree. Most of the time, we just go ahead and use language so that we can just move on in our everyday life. Most of the time, that's what we do. And these are the people that I'm basically speaking to that it winds up being important not only for us but especially for our children to that degree to be able to understand the language. And then here it is. What we wind up doing is, as Muslims, we wind up okay. We don't even have a strong control as far as the English language is concerned, but then we also now want to go into the Arabic language to that degree. Look, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do to that degree. It hasn't worked for me personally, and so I don't go into it to that degree. What I do is I use translation. So I'll get three or four different translations, and then I'll compare them to understand, where something is coming from, as far as the Arabic text is concerned, because I believe that the people who have done the translations that they were Muslims and they had the best intent, and so they might say the word different, but they basically wind up being basically the same thing, to that degree. And again, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because the human being is a person who likes to tell stories, who likes to put words together to to go ahead and express themselves to that degree. This is what the human being has always done. The human being has always done it. And so this idea, the thing about hip hop is that, they think that they're doing something that's unique. They're not doing anything unique. The human being has always been able to do that. They think they're doing something unique as far as like your music is built on R&B, your music is built on jazz, your music is built on rock. You're not the only ones that put words together. When you talk about words being put together, Billie Holiday sung songs. Do you know who Eckstein is? Do you know who Lou Rawls is? Do you know who Marvin Gaye is? Tammy Terrell? Do you know any of these people? Do you know who Mahalia Jackson was? And what they did is they sung words too, to that degree. So it's not that you're the first one to do it. It's important for us to understand the connections to that degree. So, we're connecting not only to, what has happened with us in recent history as hip hop is just something that's by itself, or hip hop is something that just is with rock music R&B music or hip hop is just a black thing. People do hip hop all over the world, and they have the same structure as far as language is concerned. If you were supposed to listen to German hip hop, you would hear in German hip hop that they had flow, that they had rhyme, and that they had a story that they were telling. You would hear that, but it's in German. But you could still appreciate it because you could listen to the flow, and you could listen to the rhythm, and you could listen to the rhyme, and you could hear that it is in the hip hop culture. And it's the same thing with any language that you will go. If you were supposed to do Chinese hip hop, you're supposed to do Japanese hip hop, Korean hip hop, French hip hop, you know, uh, Arabic hip hop, you would hear the same thing. You would hear that. But all of this comes from the human being's ability to take words and to create stories. That's what the human being does. And again, I tell you that um, sometimes, like in history, what happens is that people wind up they don't come in and embrace the culture. They come up and then destroy the culture. And unfortunately, and we're talking about as far as words are concerned. We're talking about as far as culture is concerned. That people come in, some people that the conquerors come in and embrace the culture, but some people come in and they try to destroy the culture. And unfortunately, it seems like that's the situation we're in today, as far as America is concerned, because of all of the efforts that have been made about African Americans in the American culture, not only as far as language, as far as sports. Well, they can't do anything as far as sports, but as far as language is concerned, there are books that they're taking off the shelves of schools. They're taking books off the shelves because they don't there are things that there's the expressions that they don't want their children, American children, to hear or to be able to have access to. They don't, the people that are in power don't want that to happen. And so what they're trying to do is erase that out. But it's important to understand that uh, from the time of Adam and Eve, Adam was basically, I'm using this here, that he was a prophet, but what he was also, he was a storyteller. That's what he was. He was a storyteller. He told a story about God, the idea about good and evil. He told that. And then, as he gave that responsibility to his son Seth, who told the story, he told the idea about what happened with his father, what happened with Cain and Abel, and they would tell their children. And then as time went on, and they, people started taking language and they started making up words. And then the next thing you know, they started making up fables and they started making up fairy tales, about, gods and devils, Satan, the whole idea about, in the Sassanid culture, there was Zoroastrian. There was this religion called the Zoroastrian, a religion, and it was basically the idea of good and evil. That's basically what it was, but it became a religion that people went to. But it's the same thing. They made it, and people made it into a religion. Okay, but it was the same idea that Adam had with being a prophet, and the rest of the prophets had. They just made it into the same thing with worshiping sun worshipers and moon worshipers. Who's God and the devil. Yeah, that's basically what it is, and it's the same thing what it is today. It's the same thing of what it is today, as far as what's good and what's bad. We just live in a American society today that is has everything to do with social media. that there are so many stories that are out there, and the question becomes, like, yo, what am I supposed to? Who do I believe, and who can I trust? Who do I believe as far as these things are concerned? Who do I believe? Who do I believe as far as all of these different stories are being that are being told? Oh, who is crafting all of these things? Who's crafting, and what's the message that they're trying to get over to me? And so I just, I got a couple of minutes left in the program, and I just would like to say that the human being is a storyteller. That's what the human being does. Ever since the human being has done this idea, as far as language is concerned, he's been a storyteller. And we are, as African Americans, are working with the English language to tell our story historically. That's what we've done. And when you see the young people today that are out there that are making up these rhymes, as far as hip hop is concerned, is they're utilizing the language as best as they can to tell a story. That's what they're doing. So and I believe that as time goes on, that there's a lot of negativity in it, but I really believe that as time goes on, that you're going to see much more powerful ideas that are going to come through the hip hop language. And I just would like to, if you would like to hear some Muslim artists that do positive hip hop and utilize the language to give a positive message, then I ask you to go to Muslims Marketplace, or no, do this. Go to DJSAWT.com. DJSAWT.com, and you will hear Muslim artists that give a positive message as far as hip hop is concerned, and something that gives praise and glorification to the creator of the heavens and the earth to that degree. Everybody doesn't do that, but there are Muslim artists that are out there that are actually, working to express, the constructive message with it. And so, with that, uh, I want to, just open up the microphone to Sister Martha, and ask her if is there anything she'd like to say as far as the programming that's going to come on today, on Monday, or Sister Manira, to talk about the program that's going to come on Monday on American Muslim 360.
Yes, I can do that. Um, we have a program, MAP 5, Muslim Power, Muslim American Power 5. And this program will come on at from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 to 2 Central, and 10 to 12 Pacific Time. And this program is a discussion focused on transforming faith into action through proactive civic engagement. Following that, we have from 5 to 7 p.m. Optimal Health with Abdul Shahid, uh, giving you a different understanding of health and how to uh, take care of our health organically, um, right in our homes,
Mm.
and understand our health much better, so that we can preserve our health. Okay.
And what
And
time does that come on?
Optimal Health comes on
Yes.
from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
Okay. And then our last program this evening is from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that program is Ma'ia ala Kuli Hal, which means together under all circumstances. And this program is going to share words of wisdom and inspiration, education, and comfort as um, he explains how we are mutually bonded um, as human beings in this shared freedom space.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so very much for that. Uh, So, brothers and sisters, I thank you so very much for hanging out with me today on American Muslim 360, living in the upload life. Living in the upload life is where we are really at with the various stories that are being told to us, and it's important that to understand that this is what the human being has always been able to do. And you might say, well, like I've always known that to that degree, but be a I think that I should be working and we all should be working to be better storytellers. I think that's what the hip hop does. That's what they're trying to do. Um, uh, the news are their storytellers. Everybody's a storyteller to that degree. Be careful of the stories that you actually take in, because the thing is that the whole idea is it going to be good or is it not going to be good? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be evil? Is it going to be a benefit or not? Is it going to be for the praise and glorification of the creators in the heaven and the earth, or is it going to be for idol worship? These are the conflicting ideas that we have to deal with in American society to that degree. It's the same thing. It doesn't change. It hasn't changed. It's just become a little more complicated. That's all it basically has done. It's just become a little more complicated. And as time goes on, it's going to even get more complicated. But what we say in as Muslims that the way to basically to do the basics, and that is what? Say your prayer, read your book, and call on your God. To call on your God. Say your prayer, read your book, call on your God. That's what we do. That's it. Because no matter what happens, as far as today is concerned, we still have to make 5 prayers a day. No matter what happens, no matter what's going on in the world, you still got to make 5 prayers. That's how that goes. And so if the focus and concentration is on that, I got to make sure that when the prayer comes in, I got to go ahead and make that prayer. That keeps a lot of the confusion out. But so I'll just leave it like that, brothers and sisters. I'll leave it like that. So thank you, Sister Manira. Thank you, Sister Malta. Thank you, Kareem Hamid, for participating in the program this morning. And until tomorrow, let me invite you to Stories of the Lives of the Prophets, where we will deal with some of the stories of Ibn Kathir that he tells about the prophets. Ibn Kathir was from the 13th century. He was from the 13th century, and from the 13th century, um, he uh, he created stories and he backed them up with facts from the Quran and from hadiths, etc. But he tells us some information that you may not have gotten about from the traditional stories that has been passed down through the ages, from and then when they got to Ibn Kathir, he put them into a book form. Sister Martha.
Yes, I apologize. I had to answer an important call. I don't know if you were able to share about today,
Yes,
1
we did.
p.m.
Sister Manir.
Okay, good. Manir, I figured so. Okay.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. You look good there, sis.
Thank you, my brother.
That's right. You're working on that. You like working on your Zoom image.
You told me I haven't figured out how to make the phone be stationary or computer be stationary, but I'm working on
There you go.
it.
May Allah continue to bless you.
Thank you. Assalamu
Uh,
alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you, brothers and sisters. And until the next time, I really don't want to end the program like this. And so because I don't want to end the program like this, I'm not going to end the program like this. I'm gonna go ahead and do a share and give you a song uh uh from an artist, for a very good artist. Let me do it. Let me do it as quickly as I can. Uh, this is from a hip hop artist named NY Oil. There you go. Okay, this is from NY Oil, and it's called "Don't Get It Twisted."
We can't really hear it.
Okay, what happened?
We can't hear it very well.
Okay, let me see. Okay, let me do this.
You click share sound.
Okay, maybe if I turn it up a little more, let's see.
No, we're not hearing it.
So that didn't work either?
No, that didn't work.
Okay, all right, so we'll leave it alone. Okay, we'll work on that for the next time. And so we'll stop sharing. We'll come out of that and we'll say until the next time we give you the greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And you stop live streaming as well. It's still saying live.
Okay. All right. I'm into more. Well, sister got it. She has it.
She has. Thank you, Manira.
Thank you. You're welcome.
We're getting better as we move forward.
I mean.